a squad or as a starting
I'm
test?
kind of more interested in starting test. Then I might throw,
Uh,
any squad members, I guess.
I think Ty Furlong is 100% nailed on.
Yeah.
I think he's so far ahead of everybody else, and what he's done, I suppose, having been out for a year, is probably even more reason to think that he's nailed on, because he's only going to get better and better as the next couple of months go by with more game time. I think for me, Johnny Sexton is definitely in there too. I think,
which, by the way, is kind of amazing, isn't it? I think at the start of the championship, Finn Russell, George Ford, just by dint of age and everything else, were licking their lips saying, well, Sexton's out of the equation here. I mean, he hasn't finished 80 minutes in a long time, certainly not consecutively. And what is he, the 10 of the championship?
Yeah, for me, he is now. I've seen a couple of articles about Dan Biggar, and to be fair, Dan Biggar never really does anything wrong, and he's incredibly astute as a rugby player, very good technical mind. There's just something lacking for me in terms of, like, Johnny's grumpy. He can drive people. He gets the best out of those around him, and that's not to say I don't know Dan Biggar, but from watching, he just seems like he came off nearly every game for Wales at 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's always a bit odd, isn't it? Callum Sheedy finishes.
And completely sorry for cutting across here. No. I actually think he's the reason. Taking him off so early in the last game, in the French game, was the reason they lost. I thought they lost all control after he went off. I was really surprised at that. Robbie Henshaw, for me, and I don't think the form that Conor Murray showed last week has catapulted him straight back into that conversation. I thought he was excellent, and I would like to think that the more he'll play now over the next couple of weeks, the sharper he'll get again. And I thought he was really good. The fairy tale in me would love to see Keith Earls in there. But
it's interesting. The boys I mentioned, Donal Lenihan, Eddie O'Sullivan, Bernard Jackman, I should have given you their team to kind of give you a sense of what they were thinking. In their backline, they had Gareth Davies in instead of Murray. They had Sexton. And they had Owen Farrell and Henshaw together. And then on the wings, they had Liam Williams and Rhys Sammet with Stuart Hogg at fullback.
Yeah, I saw that. And to be fair, it's an unbelievable backline. I am going to be a little bit controversial here. I actually wouldn't have Owen Farrell in there.
Right.
I would start Robbie Henshaw at 12. And I would love to see Keith Earls in there. I think he's playing better rugby than he was 4 years ago, which is outrageous when you think about it. He went on the Lions tour 8 years ago, is it now?
No, 09 it'd be 12.
09?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This will be the full, that was in South Africa, so this would like be a certain symmetry to it.
Yeah, 100%, and I think he's playing brilliant rugby. Now, that's just the fairy tale in me, and I'm not sure, because there is some unbelievable wingers there. I think Rhys Sammet's, come burst onto the scene, but then you've like George North as well, and Anthony Watson,
Liam Williams,
and these guys. So
the lads had Liam Williams in as well.
And Stuart Hogg has got to be nailed down as 15. Like, I think that's going to be a given. So
is Gary? Would you be worried about Gary Ringrose now? Because I think maybe towards the end of last year, a lot of people would have felt, well, such a brilliant defender and reader of the game and touch of class, that he'd have a very good chance of being in there. But the Six Nations hasn't gone his way, so I don't know how he flips that.
Yeah, I think, well, look, it's similar to 4 years ago when Peter O'Mahony hadn't played well or played at all because he'd been injured, and came in for, was it 4 years ago where he came in for the last Six Nations game, and all of a sudden, captain for the first test. I think Ringrose 100% has a chance. I actually think for the first couple of games he was doing his best to drag us through some really sticky situations. Okay, the last game that he played, Italy, I think it was, Scotland didn't go too well for him. But other than that, he had probably been the form, centre for the previous 12 months. But it's funny, the way the lines work. Usually kind of only, it's not really the year before that they usually take on into account. It seems to be the Six Nations and the run-in. And, traditionally you'd have Six Nations and then you'd have European Cup. And it used to be kind of, I felt like it used to be based off that almost. So it'll be interesting. And, it'll be a bit unfair for him not to be. But I think Henry Sade's played really well.
You forget Gatland. I know this is Niamh Briggs' team as opposed to what we think Gatland will do. But Gatland loves Jonathan Davies.
Yeah, and he's class. But is he playing as well as he has been? Is he carrying injuries? But then he's really good at doing the basics really well. He never makes a mistake. His ability to cover across the line, is similar to Robbie Henshaw's, to be fair to him. So, yeah, Jonathan Davis will probably be in there. And I really, really like Hugh Jones from Scotland. I think he and it's a bit left field, I get it, but I think he causes huge amounts of problems staying the teams. And I was a bit surprised to see him not starting this weekend. I thought Chris Harris was back in for France. So, look, I suppose this is like we've just left one tournament and now we're also excited about the Lions and we can just argue about this next few weeks. I just think on the plane or in a whole test squad, I'd love to see 6 or 7 names in there. I think it would definitely be warranted.
Yeah. Well,
like Ian Henderson, it's very difficult to not look at that.
Well, you think, he will certainly go. It's okay because he really emerged as a brilliant player for the midweek team. I think there was a game. He arrived. He was unlucky. He was part of a batch that played kind of jet lagged and when they first arrived in New Zealand and had to fight his way back from memory. And I think Sexton was in the same boat for a while, but then injuries meant he kind of played himself into form. So if that was kind of your back line, you're having Furlong in the front row. The Lenihan, O'Sullivan, Jackman team had Itoje and Alan Wynne in the second row. They did have Tyke Byrne at 6. So is it Itoje and Alan Wynne for you in the second row?
No, I think it could be. You see, I'm not sure Alan Wynne will start. As much as I love him, he's one of my favourite players. Yeah. I just think, for me, his performances not really dipped, but I thought, against France the last day, I thought, he was lucky not to be Simbin. A lot of penalties. Thought there was a lot of look. His work rate's unbelievable. And if they were going to pick a tour captain and a test captain, I think Alan Wynne would be the perfect tour captain. I think his record is unbelievable. I think it could be Itoje and James Ryan in second row, or Itoje, James Ryan. I think Itoje has to start. As much as when we play against him, drives me insane because he's such on the edge. But when I'm supporting him, I love the fact that he's on the edge. And they're going to need somebody like that with a bit of dog in them against South Africa. That's going to be a big thing.
It's amazing. It seems like Tyke Byrne really has gone from not sure would he play for Ireland to now being a line starter in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. And, there's a lot, people question his size, I think, a lot. And for me, I think the game is starting to evolve away from these big, heavy second rows to a certain point. I think when you look at the likes of New Zealand and Sam Whitelock and Scott Barrett and these guys, that they're not huge, but what they do is they have finesse about them and their ability to link play, but also their ability to match a line out, which Tyke Byrne has been really good at. And if he plays in the second row, he gives that option of almost having a fourth back row. And I think if you go with a big kind of front row like a Tyke Byrne, probably Mac Vunipola or Sinclair type of a player, they're big enough to kind of take the weight in the scrum. I think now the guards are probably roaring laughing at me talking about a scrum, but I think he's too important. He's way too crafty. His ability to get over the ball, but his ability to put himself into positions. He's really clever. I was watching the other day when I watched the game back at picking his moments. There are the times when you could jump into nearly every rock and come away with nothing. Whereas he's happy enough to kind of follow the play behind and just wait for his little opportunity. And the minute he gets it, he doesn't leave it go. And for me, he has to go. I don't think you can deny that kind of good form.
And Johnny Sexton, needless to say, would be the oldest starting 10 on a Lions tour by some distance. God, if ever a conversation warranted being in a pub with pints around the table and crisp packets open everywhere, it's who should start for the Lions.